Okay, so I've separated the stanzas and I've highlighted some words in colour. So what I want you to do before I go into the analysis, each slide, I would like you to pause and try and annotate the stanza on your own. Try and analyse this on your own. So I have given you some clues in terms of highlighting some of the words, some of the phrases. Okay, so pause now. And then I'll go into the analysis and have a look at specifically at the highlighted words, but also a little bit more about the stanza as well. So the word embarked here possibly has a double meaning. Perhaps there's a literal meaning, which means to board a plane or to embark on a new adventure, perhaps, which is done willingly. Now, soldiers shaved their heads as part of a ritual that demonstrated their readiness as well as remaining dignified even in death, and highlights the honour and recognition that the pilots received. And in terms of journey into history, again, they would never be forgotten. A one-way journey into history. Actually, ironically, kamikaze pilots weren't written down as heroes in modern history books, especially in the Western world. And there's also the introduction here of a semantic field, which is really important throughout. So we've got sunrise here, of nature as being something quite beautiful, which contrasts with the intended actions of the pilot or war itself. So obviously the mention of sunrise here, and also the mention in terms of the sea, the fish, the nature, the life. Okay, so that's a semantic field of this poem. So again, if you can pause here and do the same activity. So there is a change in tone here with but halfway there. The pilot's experience in she thought is only interpreted by others. Generations have speculated, but the pilot doesn't actually have a voice here. It's all conjecture and speculation. And the modal verb must creates a bond between the pilot and the narrator. It appears to be an attempt to justify the pilot's actions and understand his plight. The narrator is aligned with the pilot and shows an element of sympathy towards him and his experience. And then we've got the reference to bunting, the simile like bunting. And the bunting is usually associated with celebrations, which really contrasts with the main ideas here. And here, the fishing boats that the pilot may have seen on the sea as he flew over the water may have filled him with joy and nostalgia. And this experience may have changed his mindset entirely by the looks of this. The power of beauty is evident here. So considering how indoctrinated the pilots were, this must have been something enormously powerful to cause him to abandon his mission in this way. And again, we've got this semantic field of nature and this beauty itself. So again, stanza 3, pause. So we've got the repetition here of S and F sounds, and they create pace and could mimic the motion of the aircraft as well. It's quite a sensory poem, this, in terms of sound and description of imagery. And in particular, the past tense verb swiveled recalls the fatal spiral that the pilots used to hit their targets, these kamikaze pilots. The narrator recognizes that such natural beauty may have discouraged the pilot from completing his mission. The fish move in a figure of 8, perhaps reminding the pilot of the flags that would have helped indicate the launch of his plane, or perhaps they're also symbolic of the war being fought between different nations represented through their flags. And here the fish simply move about naturally and contentedly, and perhaps the pilot yearns for this simplicity and harmony. And again, with stanza 4, if you could pause here. So we've got a cairn, a mention of a cairn. It's a mound of rough stone, which you build as kind of a memorial or a landmark. I don't know if you've ever climbed a mountain, you often find cairns, you put a stone on kind of to symbolize your achievement. And this ties in, ironically so, with the theme. And we've got contrasting vocabulary here as well with turbulent and safe. And notice also the lack of punctuation in this stanza. Now, do you think this suggests the pilot's decision was not a conscious one, as he recalls playful childhood memories that really get the better of him, which is a direct quote from the poem. And unlike his father's boat, his plane is not designed either to return or to be safe. So there's a lot of irony in this stanza. And again, stanza 5, pause. So we've got sibilance here. Hopefully you got that. It imitates the soothing and gentle sound of the boat journey in this memory, which again contrasts with the theme and the subject. Now the tuner, like the pilot, this is a metaphor here, is swimming alone. He too is dark or on a dark path. He's muscular. So the Kamikaze pilots were actually really, really well trained, very, very fit, very strong, and also dangerous. So this is a very powerful metaphor here. Stanza 6, if you could pause. So now we move fully into the words of the interviewee here with our italicized stanza, bringing a sense of harsh reality. Now, because the pilot chose his physical life, he loses his emotional one, and his wife shuns him, as do his neighbours, and they treat him like he doesn't exist. Emotionally, he suffered a death, even though he's still physically living. And the final phrase here is broken across 2 stanzas. It continues as enjambment here and reflects the broken and now unnatural relationship between father and children. It's a lot of sadness there, which suggests that the speaker, the daughter, has a lot of sadness about this. So here we are. Again, pause. So the children naturally still treat their father the same, not understanding the shame or the dishonor that he's brought to his family, but in time they learned to shun him and they accepted the culture that surrounds them. Now it's perhaps this culture that the father wanted to escape from, but can't. And in the final 2 lines, the mother speculates whether her husband has thought about if he had made the right choice or not. And again, we've got a repetition of this modal verb must, which kind of connects the reader and the narrator and the pilot. And it shows a hint of desperation in the tone, as though the narrator wants the reader also to show him mercy. Okay, so ultimately, we've got the man sacrificing his emotional life by turning his plane back. And we've got memories being the driving force, the fish, the boat, his daughter, his own father. He makes his choice based on his past. But in the present, in his present, family shun him. First the adults, then eventually the children. So it's a story about family as well as life and death. We've got, obviously, we'll just summarize in terms of the several different speakers that we've got. We've got the pilot, but again, it comes through, the voice of the pilot comes through the way the poet writes. We've got the writer, the speaker of the poem, who explains what happens, allows these different perspectives to come through, but obviously consider the use of that modal verb must as well. We've got the wife, the final 2 lines, and the daughter. Okay, quiz. So I will let you carry out this quiz. See if you get 6 out of 6. Pause. Right, number 1. What point of view is the poem written from? It is written from a mixture of the first and third person. Number 2, what is the literal translation of the word kamikaze? It actually means divine wind. Number 3, which quotation suggests the randomness of war? It is like a huge flag waved first one way, then the other. Number 4, which one of these is a metaphor? Well, it's a tuner, the Dark Prince, is a metaphor for the pilot himself. Number 5, what does the second sentence in the poem mark? And it is a shift in time and speaker. Remember, the second sentence is the italicized sentence, which is, I think, after 5 verses. It's the 6th verse. And number 6, which description best fits the rhythm of the poem? Well, there is no regular rhythmic pattern. We discussed the significance of that earlier. Okay, thank you.